looking at the difference between this point right here and this point right here. And then it's drawing a line between those two. So what it did, this is why I hate this stinking thing, because I flip it and then it goes way too far. So up here, it ruins it. Not what I want. But if I just do a little bit, maybe it'll help. Nope, not even a little bit. You don't want to smooth things with points, but you do want contrast. If you have a face or hair that you're cutting out, you usually want to smooth it so that you lose that halo. You can also shift the edge in or out. So if you want just a little bit more, you can work with it, and then you can smooth it. Or not. Let's not. Ever. You can tell it to intelligently detect pixels at a certain radius around it. So if you know where you're going, you can get there pretty easily. And this is just a little tool that shows you what you're getting before you actually do it. It's a helpful thing, especially when you're starting to use it. I'm just going to say OK to this. And let's make a new layer and then fill this one again. Oop. Foreground color. And let's compare this one to that one. This is the original one. See how it looks a little bit funky up there versus this one. I'm not a fan of either, quite honestly. But actually, you know what? I'm more of a fan of the first one than I am of the second one. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it looks better. It doesn't look as crowded.
Yeah, especially up at the top there.
I mean, I suppose you could maybe turn that into just a green circle if you wanted.
That would lose the effect. If you're doing Photoshop or photography of a building for any kind of commercial purposes, what you want to do is you want to have accurate to a teeth, especially if you're working for a realtor, imagery. Because if you Photoshop out power lines going to the back of a house and somebody buys the house because they thought there were no power lines, then you could be held liable, and that's not fun. But we're not getting into that right now. Yeah.
Why you're putting things on layers. What's the
I'm only demonstrating how it shows right now, because if you have this on a layer, it'd probably be helpful if I turned on and off the right layers. So this is the secondary one, this is the first one, just to illustrate a point, primarily, through the different methods that you can use. So that's not too bad, really. I'm not hating that second one. No. And this first one, it lost too much of that object. So now, I mean, you saw what I did. I used the, let me toggle this off and show you one more time. I used the quick selection with a large brush to grab most of this. Not all of it. Oops. It would help if I was on the right image. Sorry, layer of the image. So I grab everything up the top, and then I go back and use the other tool to clean it up. So I use my magic wand tool to, sorry, I've been on a Mac all day. What I'm trying to do now is clean up this area. What you can see I'm doing is it's subtracting colors that are like it, but it's not grabbing everything. It's because I have it set to contiguous. Does anybody know where we live right now? The contiguous United States. What are the outliers? Thank you. It does the same thing. Like, if you have contiguous up here checked, it will ignore anything outside of this little spot that you select. So if I subtract that, even though those colors over there might be the same, it's not going to grab them because they're not touching. If I uncheck that, now you can see what it did. It grabbed all that stuff that was pretty close to it. It's more specific. It's not a better option. If you get up here, it's definitely a better option. Because if I have contiguous unchecked, and I click on one of those little blobs, and then just kind of play with it, it's going to do everything at once, so I don't have to go clicking through it all the time. And it's more precise than the quick selection tool, which, as you can see, is like a broad, it's like using a sledgehammer to pound a nail in the wall. It's overkill. and it'll ruin what you're trying to do for the most part. So the magic wand tool, it's like trying to clean a latrine with a toothbrush. You'll do a really good job, but it'll take forever to do it, if that makes sense. So those two methods are helpful, same tool, kind of. Two coins of the same, I don't know, two sides of the same coin, I should say. Let me flip to this one. No, I don't want to do that one. Let's do this one. What would you use for this? Yep, to make them look like they're standing in the middle of a mall, because that would be the most unlikely place.
I would use the quick selection tool.
You could do the desert. I think a mall would be more fitting, though. Would I use the quick selection on the background or the foreground?
I would use the foreground.
I agree, because if you use it on the foreground, this little spot right here, if you make a selection inside of here, you see how it kind of, because that's a similar tone, it eats up the outside of his head. What you can do is just subtract it, just a little bit, and then click and drag through here. All I'm doing is clicking and dragging.
Subtract it, you were clicking and pressing Alt.
Yep. Up here you have, if you want to press the buttons, you can press them up here. Subtract, add, auto. Yeah. And right here on this left side of her face, the tone of the skiing stuff, mountain I think they call it, is very similar to that of her helmet. So it's not very good for it to do its job. And you can see right here in the middle, I'm using a small brush and I'm going through. That tone right there is basically the same thing. So I'm going to have to go back in with a quick, the other one, magic wand tool, and then clean that up. So I'm going to click right, nope, contiguous. Deselect that, nope, sorry, I'm selecting, not deselecting.
So when you subtract it, it goes in closer to the object, and when you add it, it goes out farther from that? Like you're trying to outline?
This is crazy.
Yeah, it depends on whether or not you are actually trying to, it depends on your selection. Because right now, what I've got, oh, that's too far. There we go. That's close enough. What I've got is I have them selected. So if I wanted to add to it inside of them, I'd hold down Shift. But if I wanted to subtract for them, I'd hold down Alt to subtract from this little selection. Does that make sense? Like if I delete them right now, you can see what I've missed. Obviously, it's the side of his jacket. And that's really a good test. When I was doing complex cutouts, like really crazy cutouts of like patio furniture that are like wicker and thousands of little points, I would just fill it with black to figure out what I'm missing. Or flip the background and then fill it with black. And then just to see whatever my subject was on a different layer.
How do you fill it with black again?
You can go to Edit, Fill, or I mash Shift F5, which is my little shortcut key all the time. And then it brings up this window, and you can choose foreground, which is my black color, or the background, which is the white color.
While it's selected,
Yeah.
you'll be selecting, you'll be filling whatever's selected.
Yep. So I'm going to go back in and use, because I want to be lazy and use the quick select tool. I'm going to grab that and then hold down Shift and then just add this jacket that I missed to that selection. And you can see how it automatically refines it for me. And then I'm just going to clean up the inside, and there we go. So now if I wanted to, I could copy this couple and then paste them on a new layer. And all I'm going to do is mash Control C and then Control V. Okay. And now they are there, separate from the background.
When you did Control V, did it automatically make a layer? for
Yep.
you?
If you paste, it makes a layer. And now, of course, if you wanted to move them around, remember the Move tool is this guy right up here, so you can just click and drag.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So you could have, I'm going to paste, I'm going to transform, wrong key.
How did you transform?
Transform is the shortcut for control. Sorry, the shortcut for transform is Control T. It's also under Edit. I use free transform because if I was going to do anything, I could go through these little transform options. Like I can scale it, rotate, skew, where you kind of push the sides angled to each other. Blah 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 blah. The only thing you can do in this menu that you can't do with free transform is flip horizontally or flip vertically. That's if I wanted to flip those guys around, you can do that. You know.
Is free transform a bit easier?
Yeah, if you use free transform, you get the same handles. It distorts unless you hold down shift. If you want to distort them and make them little pinheads, you can hold down control and grab these little corners. And then you can have them stretching off into the distance. Like such. And I'm going to put them back there and put these guys... let me paste one more time. Now they're really hanging out there. Oops. So you can make them into mountains. Mountains out of molehills if you wanted to. And again, all I was using was the quick select and then the... I can never remember the name of that thing. Thank you. The quick select and the magic wand. One is the broad brush, one is the little touch-up brush.
The magic one is the little touch-up brush.
I want to say yes, with the exception of something like this. If you wanted to grab everything that was black, it would actually be, I mean, you could probably do both of these equally as quickly. With the quick select tool, you'd have to drag and then hold down shift and drag and hold down shift and drag. But you lose some of her hair. With the magic wand tool, you can set the tolerance and then just select. And you see how it cleans up that hair considerably. So if you're looking for a smooth selection, you can go in and then add to this. It'll look a little bit rough, but it'll look better than it did before. So now if I don't know, if I wanted to put her on a white background just to kind of illustrate the point, I'm going to go to fill this again. Fill it with a background color because that's white. And you can see what I missed. But you know what? It did a better job than the other one would have done in the first place. Because it would have taken me a long time to clean that up. What would I use to do that? If I wanted to, I would go to filter, or sorry, select, refine edge. And let me flip the selection so we can tell a little bit more easily. And if you want to ever invert your selection, Control Shift I. Inverse right here is what I just mashed with my hands that you didn't see. So now she's selected and not the background. Going to go back to refine edge. And now we can go through and we can adjust the radius. We can smooth it. With hair, I would suggest feathering it just a little bit, but only in the spots where you're going to lose detail. Add contrast and feather. Do we all know what feather means? Like take a feather and tickle a balloon. I don't know. Feathering makes the edge softly transition from a 100% opacity to 0 opacity. The more feathering you have, the softer it is. You see how that's like cranked up there all the way? And now she looks like she's got like a glam style haircut halo. The less you have, you can see how it's basically eating up those pixels. With this, I would shift the edge in a lot more than this and smooth it at the same time so that it looks more like hair. And if I say OK to that, what do I get? I get a selection. And that selection I can go back in and clean up. So now that I have this, I can use my quick select tool